Hello, everybody. Welcome to New Heights with Vikas. This series is all about having conversations about the journeys of exceptional Nepalese founders, entrepreneurs, talents, and professionals who have built their career here in Finland. In this series, we'll also explore their struggles, their achievements, and also the constant grinding that they have to do and they are doing to reach new heights in their career. Absolutely excited to welcome our first guest to the series. I would love to welcome Bizay Gurung Dai. Dai, welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
Thank you, because I'm feeling good. It's almost weekend, so couldn't be better.
Yeah, great. Dai, one more time again, of course, great to have you in the show. Absolutely would love to, of course, love to know a bit more about you, a bit more about, your career, and then not only me, of course, a lot of, people here in Finland would love to know about you. Maybe we can start, start गरौँ अब पहिलाबाट, about a bit more about your background. नेपालमा चाहिँ what kind of background did you had early days back home? यसो भनिदिनु न त्यसको बारेमा.
So मेरो घर चाहिँ लमजुङ बेसीसर होइन. So I started my primary education in Besisar. Luckily, I got an opportunity to study in Buranikanta. So Buranikanta स्कुलमा मैले क्लास 10 देखि O लेभलसम्म, back then we had O levels, त्यति O लेभलसम्म पढ्ने मैले opportunity पाएँ होइन. I mean, there's a lot of good memories, a lot of learning coming from studying in a very multicultural environment like Buranikanta. It's not only from the ethnic group perspective, but also it dissected the sort of the social sort of the groups. So हाम्रोमा जस्तै हाम्रो निराजन सरकार पनि हामीसँगै भन्नाले मभन्दा एक ब्याच सिनियर हुनुहुन्थ्यो. धेरैजना तपाईँ मिनिस्टरको छोराछोरीहरू पनि थियो होइन. And then there's we had students from all over Nepal, जस्तै सबै जिल्ला जस्तै थियो. So that gave us an opportunity to really learn from cultural perspective. And also अहिले त्यो कुराहरू चाहिँ अहिले विचार गर्दाखेरि भने that was such a important sort of part of our life. अहिले हामीले जस्तै म अहिले ग्लोबल कम्पनीमा काम गर्छु होइन. So I don't have really interacting with anybody. I can be I can feel comfortable interacting with people from any country, any continent. I think this all goes back to my childhood, upbringing, especially in Buranikanta.
भनेपछि तपाईँ होस्टेल बस्नुभयो है बुर्लिङगढमा?
मजाले होस्टेल बसेँ पहिला. आई रिमेम्बर द डेज लाइक 10-11 वर्ष बस्दाखेरि चाहिँ एकदमै गाह्रो थियो होइन. तिमीलाई पनि थाहा होला, रुनै मन लाग्ने कि घरबाट छुट्टीबाट, के अरे घरबाट छुट्टीबाट स्कुल फर्केपछि. But as you grow up, right, and then you get into your teens and your friends start becoming more sort of more dear होइन. अनि त्यहाँबाट you get used to it.
यसको बारेमा अलिकति कुरा गर्दाखेरि आई रिमेम्बर अब म पनि त तपाईँ र हामीसँग एउटै गाउँको भइहाल्यो. मैले पनि बुढानगढको लागि चान्स दिएको थिएँ होइन. ब्याक देन चाहिँ तपाईँको त्यो हिमाली बोर्डिङ स्कुल भन्ने थियो लमजुङमा चाहिँ, बेसरमा चाहिँ. अनि फर्स्ट एन्ड सेकेन्ड एन्ड थर्ड तिनजनालाई चाहिँ हामीलाई चाहिँ बाहुनडाँडामा लगाएर चाहिँ तपाईँको इक्जाम दिन लागेको थियो क्या, तपाईँको गण्डकी र अनि बुढानगण्डको चाहिँ. अनि बुढानगण्डमा त पाएन, अनि मैले चाहिँ अनि गण्डकीमा चाहिँ मैले चाहिँ एज अ वेटिङ लिस्टमा चाहिँ पाएँ क्या. अनि त्यसपछि स्टार्टेड लकिली आई गट इन क्लास 4बाट चाहिँ क्लास 10सम्म चाहिँ 10 क्लाससम्म चाहिँ अब त्यहाँ पढेको अरे. अनि एज अ हस्टल मेमोरिज सो डिफ्रेन्ट दाइ है. आई मिन सँगै हुर्किँदाखेरि भनौँ न, अफकोर्स वी हेभ मेड सो मेनी फ्रेन्ड्स ड्युरिङ आवर करियर. अब यहीँ आएको कति वर्ष भइसक्यो, तर दोज फ्रेन्ड्स द्याट यु हेभ मेड ड्युरिङ दोज टाइम्स इट्स समथिङ एल्स.
या एक्ज्याक्टली. अहिले हाम्रो सेप्स भन्ने एलुमनाई छ होइन. सेप्स यु गो टु एनी कन्ट्री इन द वर्ल्ड, राइट. हामी एकदम छरपष्ट छौँ. युएसमा धेरै छ, युरोपियन कन्ट्रिजहरूमा पनि छ. तर सेप्स एलुमनाई यति स्ट्रङ छ कि यदि इफ आई एन्ड अप नकिङ अन अ डोर लेट्स से इन ओरेगन इन द युएस होइन, त्यहाँ एकजना सेप्सको भनेर ल आज मलाई एक दिन बास दिनु पऱ्यो भने एकदम वेलकम के, खुलेलाम पाराले एकदम होइन. सबैलाई आफ्नो बुढानकण्ठको जस्तो स्कुल डेजको कुरा गर्न चाहिँ यस रमाइलो हुँदो रहेछ.
अनि द्याट्स द ब्युटी अफ इट दाइ. बट या अनि अब बुढानकण्ठको कुरा त भइहाल्यो दाइ. अनि वाट अबाउट फिनल्यान्ड? वेन डिड यु डिसाइड to come to or to move to Finland? And also at the same time, what was the motivation?
So म बुढानकण्ठ पछि फेरि मैले युकेमा 2 वर्ष ए लेभल्स जस्तै हो, जस्तै इन्टरनेसनल ब्याकलरेट भन्छ होइन, सो इट्स अलमोस्ट लाइक ए लेभल्स। हामीले +2 भन्छ नि अहिले, त्यस्तो पढ्ने मौका पाएँ होइन। सो आई मुभ टु इङ्ल्यान्ड 97। अनि पढेपछि त्यतिखेर चाहिँ मैले चाहिँ एकदमै गाह्रो सब्जेक्ट लिएर पढिरहेको थिएँ कि, जस्तै म्याथ्स फिजिक्स र केमिस्ट्री चाहिँ हामीले हायर लेभल भन्छ कि, त्यो चाहिँ एकदमै डिप होइन। अनि सेकेन्डरी लेभलमा चाहिँ बिजनेस, इङ्ग्लिस लिटरेचर र स्पेनिस लिएर पढाएको थिएँ होइन। तर यति गाह्रो भयो कि मलाई त्यो पढ्दाखेरि त्यो 2 वर्ष। सो आई टोल्ड माइसेल्फ आइ एम नेभर गोना स्टडी हार्ड साइन्स कि होइन। अनि त्यो गर्दाखेरि अनि पछि आई लुक्ड अराउन्ड लाइक युएसतिर अनि युकेमा पनि। तर चाहिँ अब नन EU स्टुडेन्ट्स भएपछि अब ट्युसन फी महँगो पर्ने। सो आई ह्याड अ फ्रेन्ड लाइक स्टडिङ इन फिनल्यान्ड राइट, एन्ड देन उसले मेरो साथीले के भन्यो भने यदि तिमीलाई बिजनेस पढ्नु मन छ भने चाहिँ फिनल्यान्ड आऊ, यहाँ राम्रो छ, राम्रो बिजनेस स्कुल छ, SAT स्कोर जुन मैले गरिसकेका थिएँ अमेरिका अप्लाई गर्नको लागि, अनि त्यो स्कोरले पनि आउनु मिल्छ, त्यो एन्ट्रेन्स एक्जाम लिन दिँदैन भनेर मैले अप्लाई पठाएँ होइन। पठाएर म नेपाल गएँ। सो 3 months आई वाज जस्ट लोइटरिङ अराउन्ड होइन।
So we're talking about 1997
99 समरमा होइन। त्यसपछि अनि पछि आई सडनली गट अ लेटर फ्रम फिनल्यान्ड। आई ह्याड फरगटन द्याट आई अप्लाइड टु फिनल्यान्ड। नेपालमा हुँदाखेरि अनि यसो हेर्छु यु एडमिटेड टु द युनिभर्सिटी भन्यो त्यहाँबाट। अनि सो आई कल्ड हर एन्ड देन सेड सो मैले यस्तो पाएँ, म के गर्ने होला नि, अन्त आई थिङ्क यु सुड कम, ट्युसन फी फ्री छ होइन। सो भनेपछि आई मेड अ बोल्ड मुभ to Finland, not knowing anything about Finland. The first time I saw anything about Finland, त्यो भिसा लिन जाँदाखेरि तिम्रो यो त्यो एम्बेसीको वालहरूमा चाहिँ होइन त्यो विन्टरको फोटोहरू थियो होइन। द्याट वाज द फर्स्ट टाइम आई लिटरली लाइक सब आई डिडन्ट रियली गुगल अबाउट फिनल्यान्ड। त्यतिखेर गुगल पनि थियो होला सायद, तैपनि आई डिडन्ट रियली रिसर्च एनिथिङ अबाउट फिनल्यान्ड राइट। एन्ड देन आई भिसा अप्लाई गरेँ, पाएँ, एन्ड देन आई टुक एयरफ्लोट flight that was actually 28 hours flight to Finland.
Transit कहाँ थियो?
Transit Moscow मा 22 घण्टा थियो। That was not a nice story. साह्रै गाह्रो थियो, but I ended up here.
Great. That I think a lot of people have similar stories also, especially late 90s and early 2000s on साथीहरुको पनि। How did you, when you landed in Finland, how was the community, for example? Nepalहरू कति थियो? Of course it was, I mean, you know, over 20 years ago. How was the community? How active was the community? And of course, after community, a bit more about the you know, the job security and those kind of things. But starting with the community overall, कतिजना नेपालीहरू थियो तपाईहरु, especially अब तपाई त हेलसिङ्कीमा आउनुभयो हैन, हेलसिङ्की आउनुभयो। How was the situation, like community back then?
यसो विचार गर्दाखेरि न्युक्लियस हेलसिङ्की नै न्युक्लियस थियो होइन। सबैजना नेपालीहरू आई वुड से लाइक 90% ओभर 90% वर इन हेलसिङ्की। 1-2जना कोही तुर्कुमा, कोही कोबुलातिर हुनुहुन्थ्यो होइन। तर धेरै जसो चाहिँ नेपाली के अरे हेलसिङ्कीमै हुनुहुन्थ्यो धेरैजना। हाम्रो 2-4वटा नेपाली रेस्टुरेन्टहरू थियो उहाँहरूको र उहाँहरूको फ्यामिलीहरू। हामी स्टुडेन्टमा चाहिँ धेरै कम थियो। म र सायद हाम्रो एकजना साथी समीर 2जना थियो। अनि अरू जस्तै नोकियामा काम गर्ने दाइहरू हुनुहुन्थ्यो होइन, उहाँहरूको फ्यामिली। यताउता लगभग गरेर चाहिँ लाइक 60-80 होइन, यदि 60-80 थियो। हामी सधैँ दसैँतिर हामी सबै भेटघाट हुन्थ्यो। जस्तै समरमा समर पिकनिक भनेर सबै पटलक यु नो सिस्टमले चाहिँ सबैजना भेटघाट हुन्थ्यो। तिहारतिर जस्तै चाडबाडतिर चाहिँ हामी एकै मुष्ट हुन्थ्यौँ कि जहिले नि।
न्युक्लियस लाइक हेलसिङ्की इज प्रिटी मच
एक्ज्याक्टली सबैजना आउँथ्यो। त्यतिखेर हाम्रो सबैजना बच्चाहरू पनि धेरै सानो सानो थियो होइन। सो हामी गीत गाउने पनि हामी हो होइन, नाच्ने पनि हामी हो, अरू त खासै थिएन नि त। सो yeah, it was kind of nice. Very it was like a family हैन। अब किनभने अब सबैजना आफ्नो आफ्नो काममा बिजी हुन्छ। मैले त नेपाली धेरै बोल्न नि पाउँथिनँ त्यतिखेर हैन। सो अनि नेपाली खाना हैन, सो जमघट हुँदा राम्रो हुन्थ्यो। But we were all on our own.
अनि त्यतिखेर was that the time around when FC Gaole was born, right? Of course, football is something that everybody loves to play, and I think that community is so strong now. त्यतिखेर चाहिँ late mid 2000, late 2000, I think that was the time when we started playing football, or when football started.
Sure. तर त्यो भन्दा पनि अलिकति अगाडि जाँदाखेरि हैन, मैले भने म र मेरो एकजना मिल्ने साथी, हामी अहिले नि साथी छौं समीर हैन। सो हामी 2जना अनि यता बियोमा आन्टीहरू हुनुहुन्थ्यो हैन। सो आई मिन सुरुमा चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ अलिक पछि भयो अलिकति कम्युनिटी बढ्यो नि अगाडि चाहिँ अब होइन हामीले अहिले पनि जस काम पाउनलाई गाह्रो छ तर त्यतिखेर झनै गाह्रो थियो कि जस्तै हाम्रो फर्स्ट काम भनेको डुङ्गा सफा गर्न जाने होइन जस्तै हामीलाई 2 दिनमा स्याटरडे 2 घन्टा अनि सन्डे चाहिँ 1.5 घन्टा होइन त्यो सफा गर्नको लागि वी लिटरली ह्याड टु वेस्ट द होल विकेन्ड कि हामी माथि पोयो सागामा बस्थ्यो बस लिएर आएर 1 घन्टा अगाडि गएर 2 घन्टा सफा गरेर फर्केर जाँदा त तिम्रो होल डे नै गयो कि बट आई मिन अनि फेरि तिम्रो त्यो पे चाहिँ एकदमै कम थियो कि बट वी ह्याड टु डु समथिङ राइट अनि त्यो थियो अनि धेरै जसो चाहिँ अरू कुनै कामको लागि अरू कुनै अपर्च्युनिटी नै थिएन कि त्यो कि फिनिस मार्क थियो तैपनि अब लेट्स से द्याट मेबी फिनिस people were not open to like open for foreigners के काम दिनलाई के स्पेसली त्यो जस्तै भनौँ न अब रेस्टुरेन्ट जस्तो काम अथवा हुनुहुन्छ नि अरू बेसिक कामहरू पनि होइन सो आई स्ट्रगल अ लट इन द बिगिनिङ लाइक मलाई याद छ म युनिभर्सिटीको 2nd इयरको समरमा पनि मैले पाइनँ कि वेयरएज मेरो अमेरिकन साथी जो चाहिँ मभन्दा 1 वर्ष जुनियर हो कि सो ही गट इट इमिडिएटली इन नोकिया कि फर इक्जाम्पल So for us, it was really, really difficult. Of course, they asked for work experience त केही पनि थिएन त्यस्तो होइन सो या वी स्ट्रगल अ लट तर वी मेड एन्ड्स मेड होइन त्यसपछि वी स्टार्टेड लाइक ट्राइङ टु फाइन्ड अदर एभिन्युज फर वर्क अनि त्यस्तै फिनिस फर सेल्स छ अझ पनि चलिरहेको छ होइन हाम्रो 2-4 जना नेपाली अझ काम गर्नुहुन्छ होइन सो आई स्टार्टेड वर्किङ देयर एक्चुली एन्ड अफ डिसेम्बर 1999 त्यसपछि अर्को छ तिम्रो यो के अरे डिज्नी अन आइस भन्ने आउँथ्यो त्यसमा होइन अब त्यो हार्टवलमा सो आई सो द्याट एड फर द फर्स्ट टाइम होइन अनि त्यहाँ अप्लाई गरेँ त्यहाँ पनि 2-4 दिनको काम पायो होइन सो यताउता गरेर होइन सो वी लेट्स से वी अर्न आवर लिभिङ होइन अब नेपालबाट पैसा माग्ने त त्यतिखेर त गाह्रै हुन्थ्यो नि सो इट वाज लट अफ स्ट्रगल होइन इन द बिगिनिङ we were probably broke like I don't know how many times right तर एक अर्कालाई हेल्प हुन्थ्यो अब होइन अब कहिलेकाहीँ अब मेरो काम छैन भने अर्को साथीलाई भने उसले काम लगाइदिने त्यसो गरेर या वी स्ट्रगल अ लट इन द बिगिनिङ
एटलिस्ट धेरै अब तपाईँको त्यो भनौँ न टाइम फ्रेममा आउने धेरैजना साथीहरूले चाहिँ आई थिङ्क विभ गन थ्रु द्याट फेज होइन अब ढुङ्गा सफा गर्ने हो कि तपाईँको पोस्ती गर्ने हो कि होइन everything possible I think we have done अब स्ट्रबेरी टिप्ने हो कि अब केराउ टिप्न जाने हो कि आई थिङ्क लट अफ पिपल कमिङ अन द्याट भनौँ न अब एटलिस्ट 10 वर्षभन्दा अगाडि आएको केटाहरू भनौँ न साथीहरूले चाहिँ probably they have gone through that phase and of course now there is like much more open अब अलिकति इन्टरनेसनलाइजेसन भइरहेको छ होइन अब हेल्सिङ इज मच मोर ह्यापनिङ देन बिफोर सो देयर सो मच अपर्च्युनिटी अहिले आउने भनौँ न बायरलाई अहिले आउने साथीहरूलाई बट या ब्याक देन इट वाज टोटली डिफरेन्ट
why I'm trying to say this is that like nothing is like an easy ride side.
No
so everybody has gone through that period of life and especially those days when there weren't many sort of open arms for opening like work for foreigners it was particularly difficult
and I think हरेक स्टेजमा चाहिँ हरेक पिरियडमा चाहिँ they have their own struggles त होइन probably अहिले पनि त अब हामीलाई देख्दाखेरि okay they might have like easier access to everything भनौँ न धेरै lot of things compared to what we had back in late 2000 or like भनौँ न 2010-15 तिर तर अहिले आउनेको साथीहरूलाई पनि भाइहरूलाई पनि they might have also had their own struggles होइन so I think everybody has gone through that particular phase but at the end of the day भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ तपाईँको we will find a way to make our ends meet भन्ने कुरा हुन्छ I think that was something that we have learned I think a lot of us like many of us have learned when we are here Finlandमा चाहिँ going forward a bit more that of course we are you had your own struggles in terms of doing those jobs and everything and of course at the same time you had your own school university going on then how did Rovio came about and of course before that you had something else also but how did Rovio came about or maybe like you could also explain a bit more before like what was the process overall getting that role
तर मलाई रोभियो भन्दा पनि त्यो अगाडिको मेरो करियरको चाहिँ it was quite critical in my career एउटा हुन्छ नि एउटा जुन हामीले स्टेयर्स चढ्न खोज्छ नि द फर्स्ट स्टेप इज अलवेज भेरी डिफिकल्ट कि होइन सो द्याट फर्स्ट स्टेप वाज अ क्रुसियल इन माई करियर कि सो यो पनि अलिकति कहानी भन्छु कि सो आई थिङ्क इट सबैले चाहिँ एउटा एउटा प्रिजर्भेन्सको कुरा हुन्छ कि होइन सो यु निड टु बी रियली रियली persistence about trying to find something that you're trying to find, right? So भनेको चाहिँ जस्तै मैले भने नि अब मैले 2 वर्ष पनि ऊ पाइनँ के अरे समर जब पाइनँ सो आई डिड लाइक आइटी हाम्रो आइटिपी इन्फर्मेसन टेक्नोलोजी प्रोग्राम भने चाहिँ आई डिड द्याट इन द समर किनभने आई डिन्ट वान्ट जस्ट लोइटर अराउन्ड द समर होइन सो द्याट वाज बिग थिङ लाइक द्याट वाज अ बिग सर्ट अफ स्किल्स टु गेन तर जब आई वाज एन्डिङ टु माई स्टडिज होइन सो के थियो भने आइदर आई ह्याड टु गेट अ जब अर देन आई वुड ह्याभ टु गो ब्याक होम किनभने द इमिग्रेसन पोलिसी वाज रियली strict ke.
And what time frame we talking there? 2000
we're talking about 6? I think 2005 okay 4 okay 5 ko just like April tira
okay
so again I always went to and actually I even went to my career service हैन हाम्रो युनिभर्सिटी मा मैले भने मेरो के रे यो CV मा के रङ छ मैले 100 वटा जति मैले CV पठाइसके मैले समर जब पनि पाउँदिन मेरो के प्रब्लम छ भनेर मैले त्यो हाम्रो हेड अफ करियर काउन्सिलिङ लाई सोध्दाखेरि चाहिँ उहाँले के भन्नु भने I mean, everybody has the same CV. I mean, there's nothing wrong with your CV. The problem could be it's your name, and unfortunately, that could be the problem. I know that here is still, like I said, it's very challenging to employ people from a foreign country, especially with the strange names. अनि उसले मलाई एडभाइस मात्र के दियो भने जस्ट चेन्ज योर लाइक आई डोन्ट नो प्लेस अफ बर्थ अर समथिङ के होइन भनेपछि अब जो पनि विजय गुरुङ हुनसक्छ नि त होइन सो आई डिड द्याट आई मिन इट्स नट बिकज अफ द्याट आई गट द जब तर मेरो चाहिँ अप्रिल 2004 हो 2005 मा हो सो आई स अ बोर्डमा हाम्रो जब बोर्डमा चाहिँ एउटा के जब पोस्टिङ थियो भने पार्ट टाइम जब फर अ गेमिङ के अरे सबमिसन स्पेसलिस्ट फर गेमिङ कम्पनी भने मलाई गेमिङमा केही पनि थाहै छैन आई नेभर लाइक I was never into gaming होइन the only game I played was त्यही हाम्रो निराजन सरकारले एकचोटि मलाई त्यो एउटा मङ्कीले चाहिँ त्यो केरा खाने गेम थियो कि त्यो र अर्को एकजना हाम्रो साथीले चाहिँ एउटा आर्केड गेम थियो होइन त्यति मात्रै हो सबमिसन स्पेसलिस्ट भनेको के हो थाहा छैन होइन सो एनीवे आई सेड आई निड टु गो एन्ड ट्राई इट आउट म गएँ होइन गएर पार्ट टाइमको लागि म यस्तो यस्तो हो म चाहिँ आई डोन्ट नो एनिथिङ अबाउट दिस बट आइ एम रेडी टु लर्न भने होइन एन्ड दे वर लाइक दे सिम्ड इम्प्रेस्ड when I came back and then I wrote back to them after a week, they said, unfortunately, they gave the position to somebody else. ठिकै छ होइन so anyway I gave it a try. फेरि 6 महिनापछि डिसेम्बरतिर फेरि सेम पोजिसन तर नट पार्ट टाइम दिस टाइम इट्स फुल टाइम कि
सेम कम्पनीमा त
सेम कम्पनीमा होइन मैले यसो विचार गरेँ मैले फेरि एकचोटि ट्राई गर्नु पऱ्यो दे सिम लाइक नाइस पिपल राइट भनेर फेरि ट्राई गरेँ होइन ट्राई गरेँ अनि उनीहरूले चाहिँ आई थिङ्क दे काइन्ड अफ गट इम्प्रेस द्याट आई वाज रियली इन टु द कम्पनी इभन दो आई डिन्ट ह्याभ एन एक्सपिरियन्स होइन सो दे कल मी ब्याक त्यसपछि अनि मलाई इन्टरभ्यू लियो अनि लिएर आई थिङ्क दे वर रियली इन्ट्रेस्टेड इन्टु माई पर्सनालिटी होइन अब मैले कसरी इन्थुजियासम देखाएको कम्पनी जोइनमा दे सेड अनि या आई थिङ्क वी लाइक यु सो यु क्यान जोइन भने त्यहाँबाट त म त होइन अब आई वाज नियरिङ टु द एन्ड अफ माई भिजा कि होइन अनि obviously that's how I got into the job. It was basically it was more like a logistics gameहरू पठाउने हैन त्यतिखेर त एप स्टोर र गुगल प्ले थिएन so we had to send the games to different carriers operators-हरूबाट डिस्ट्रिब्युट हुन्थ्यो तर चाहिँ how then I always had this of course मेरो एजुकेसन ब्याकग्राउन्डले गर्दा पनि हैन I was really into like more like a business development right अनि गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ so I had told त्यतिखेर हाम्रो it was already part of an American company तर हाम्रो head of studio चाहिँ I want to go into business development भने so he gave me a chance and I really succeeded in my job so fast forward then the company was discontinued or the studio was discontinued then म एउटा कहानी भन्छु है
sure
so basically so I was in a business trip in France right and so this was part of a Real Networks which is an American company right? So I was in a business trip in France. France was one of the biggest account for us. Okay? I think almost 50% of our revenue was coming from my accounts in France, like SFR, Orange, Bunny, the carrier. And I was going for a business trip. And my साथीले phone गरेर भन्यो, Vijay, if you're standing, I advise you to sit down because whatever I'm going to share with you, it's not going to be very pleasant भने कि ल ठिक छ के हो भन्न भने त्यहाँबाट के भन्यो भने उसले ल we basically they're closing down the whole Helsinki studio, we are all going to be fired भने कि म फेरि भरे फेरि हाँसी हाँसी डिनर खान जानु छैन त्यो चाहिँ आई म्यानेज एनिवे है अनि त्यहाँबाट पछि फर्केर आउँदाखेरि सो हाम्रो स्टुडियो हेडले यहाँ हेल्सिकीमा चाहिँ एउटा राम्रो कुरा चाहिँ के गरेको थियो भने रियली ट्यालेन्टेड गाइज राइट लट अफ ट्यालेन्टेड गेम डेभलपर्स देयर डुइङ फ्यान्टास्टिक इन देयर ओन वोइस अनि उनीहरूले चाहिँ के गरेको थियो भने इच एन्ड एभ्री हेल्सिङ्कीको अरू गेमिङ कम्पनीहरूलाई चाहिँ बोलाएर उनीहरूको प्रेजेन्टेसन थियो त उनीहरूलाई के म्यान पावर चाहिरहेछ होइन त्यो उनीहरूलाई बताऊ अनि उनीहरू के अरे हाम्रो कम्पनी जो हामी 50 जति थियो त्यतिखेर अनि सो दे कुड नट अप्लाई राइट अनि म आउँदाखेरि त आई वाज जस्ट कमिङ ब्याक फ्रम द बिजनेस ट्रिप होइन म आएँ अनि आएर मेरो साथीलाई मेरो सिभी प्रिन्ट गरिदिएँ भने आउनुभन्दा अगाडि सो आई लिटरली लाइक सबै प्रेजेन्टेसनहरू सकिसकेको थियो कि होइन सो एभ्रीबडी ह्याड लेफ्ट इट वाज एट द एन्ड अफ द डे लाइक 5 बजेतिर होइन तर रोभियोको एचआर म्यानेजर चाहिँ निस्किनलाई ठ्याक्क ढोकामै थियो कि होइन अनि म आइपुग्दाखेरि मलाई के अरे मलाई साथीले भन्थे ऊ रोभियोको के अरे एचआर म्यानेजर हो भने त्यहाँबाट मैले एकैछिन पख भनेर अनि मैले प्रिन्ट गरेको सिभी ल्याएर लिटरली ढोकामै दिएको कि होइन धेरै अब ऊ हतारमा थियो पोको पारेर हिँड्यो त्यसपछि सो आफ्टर अ विक सी कल मी ब्याक सो वी लुक एट यर सिभी होइन सो वी वान इन्टरभ्यू यु भने होइन सो द्याट वाज लाइक 2011 फेब्रुअरी अनि म गएँ सो दे वाज द सिइओ दे वाज द co-founder and there was the CMO Petr Vesterback अनि त्यहाँबाट एचआर म्यानेजर 4जना थियो सो वी talked about you know my background मेरो एक्सपिरियन्स अनि सबै बताएपछि सो द्याट टाइम एङ्ग्री बर्ड्स वाज जस्ट गेटिङ स्टार्टेड कि होइन एकदम बिगिनिङ थियो फर्स्ट गेम एङ्ग्री बर्ड्सको फर्स्ट गेम सकेर सेकेन्ड गेम बनाएको थियो क्यारे होइन एन्ड देन दे सेड लाइक होइन नेक्स्ट डे दे सेड वी वान हायर यु भने अनि मैले भने मलाई चाहिँ सक भेटिरहेको छु मेरो पहिलाको कामबाट होइन अफकोर्स आइम एक्साइटेड टु जोइन तर मलाई एक महिना चाहिँ छुट्टी चाहिन्छ आई निड टु गो ब्याक होम होइन भनेर भनेपछि उनीहरूले चाहिँ हुन्छ भने सो आई केम ब्याक एन्ड द्याट्स हाउ वी स्टार्टेड
What was the role that तपाईँको भनौँ न when they hired? What was the kind of like was that a smooth transition from the previous one or was it a not totally different but at least भनौँ न what was the first role that you had?
सो मलाई सुरुमा हायर गर्ने सो आई वाज अ बिडी गाई बिजनेस डेभलपमेन्ट राइट सो कस्तो थियो भने एप स्टोरमा चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ $1 $5 बेचिरहेको थियो सो इट वाज गोइङ थ्रु एप स्टोर तर गुगल एन्ड्रोइडमा चाहिँ मोनेटाइज गर्न एकदम गाह्रो भइरहेको थियो कि किनभने चिप एन्ड्रोइड फोन्सहरू चाहिँ कसैले नि $1 $5 तिरेर किन्नेवाला थिएन सो वाट वी डेभलप इज हाउ डु वी हाम्रो त्यतिखेर हाम्रो स्ट्राटेजी के थियो भने एन्ड्रोइड डिभाइस त फेरि छरपष्टै थियो होइन चाइना इन्डिया ल्याटिन अमेरिका जताततै होइन कोरिया अनि हाम्रो स्ट्राटेजी के थियो भने कति सक्दो चाँडो चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ हाम्रो फुटप्रिन्ट बढाउने भनेर कि सबै डिभाइसमा कसरी चाहिँ एङ्ग्री बर्ड्स गेम बढाउने भन्ने चाहिँ हाम्रो प्लान थियो कि सो द्याट वाज माई फर्स्ट गोल सो आई वेन्ट टु चाइना आई वेन्ट टु कोरिया होइन सबै आई थिङ्क आई मेड लाइक आई डोन्ट नो 30-40 deals just to get that footprint of Angry Birds and that turned into later on $2 billion installs right त्यसले के गर्यो it build the brand and to build भएपछि चाहिँ so we could do a lot of other things like licensing and TV animations and stuff so that was my first role really to spread the brand by getting into each and every devices
अन्त त्यतिखेर चाहिँ how competitive was the gaming market especially in Helsinki?
So I mean obviously when I joined we were in a very fortunate situation the brand was growing everybody wanted to have the game in their device right so let's say we were in a very 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 comfortable situation right so we didn't have to like try too hard of course we had to be selective in terms of who do you work with what kind of business deal do you make but competitive wise we were actually in a far better place like working with the platforms like Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon सबैसँग काम गर्न सजिलो because everybody wanted to have the brand the game right but I think like if you look at later on but there were gaming companies that was brewing in Finland that you can see like Supercell was really brewing the business model, the thinking behind how to make games, right? So अलिकति भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ we were maybe हाम्रो जुन सक्सेस थियो नि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामी चाहिँ अलिकति हाम्रो फोकस चाहिँ अलिकति हरायो कि गेमिङबाट हैन. So if we had continued our focus into gaming only, probably we would have been much further. त्यतिखेर चाहिँ हामीले, so we started making shoes and all the licensing
much more
stuff.
like licensing and branding and
Yeah, licensing and
merchandising
branding,
and those kind of things.
which is not bad. Obviously, it brought a lot of exposure to the brand, but at the same time, somehow I think we were a little bit left behind, you know, against the ones who were really focusing in gaming only.
Thanks for sharing that. I think for many of us, I think this, you know, all these kind of stories, of course we've read in papers here and there, but of course hearing from you is you know, people who have been on that you know, particular stage is always good. At the same time, when was the Angry Birds movie coming in there? Was it like 15, 16 tariki? Was it a bit late? How was the kind of the whole deal at the background going on?
Sure. I think the first one came in 2016, I believe. Obviously, the brand had a lot of... So we were doing a lot of animation. I know, after animation series, actually, the whole idea, the vision, the strategy behind that was like amazing. But sometimes it just doesn't, you know, come into reality, right? The idea was that there would be like... we had a concept called Angry Birds Channel. So every game, it would be like an access, right? There was a button, right? You click गरेपछि you would have access to all the Angry Birds animations, हैन. The idea later on चाहिँ के थियो भने चाहिँ we could have a distribution platform. अहिले Netflix जस्तै छ नि, you could have a distribution platform for animations, the movies, हैन. त्यो किनभने हाम्रो त फुटप्रिन्ट त यति धेरै थियो कि हैन. अब एउटा हाइपोथेटिकली भन्नु पर्यो भने चाहिँ एउटा मुभी हामीले त्यो एउटा हाम्रो गेममा लन्च गर्यो भने चाहिँ it could have been a blockbuster के. That was the power के. Of course, it didn't turn into reality. Anyway, the point was there were a lot of animation content, right? Angry Birds content, a lot of animation content. We have fantastic animators in-house. We brought in a lot of talents from all around the world. And back then, Hamro CEO, he was really into that. And he had a dream of making a Hollywood movie. Okay, I know. So we had already started our office in LA, in Santa Monica. It's very close to Hollywood. We hired, I think, people from the Hollywood background, I know. And so then I think it was just you know, the ambition level to make a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, I think there was like a lot of stories and about the movie itself, and I think people definitely enjoyed it. Villain definitely it was one of the most probably successful movie, I think.
Sure.
Brand Lebony, of course, there's, you know, so much brand awareness in Rovio overall. This was, of course, now, you know, switching from Rovio, then you went to Huawei, and then now in Sunsoft. How has the transition been? Now again, you're back to the gaming side. How has the transition been for you?
म अलिकति म फेरि ब्याक ट्र्याक गरेर मेरो एउटा एकदमै मेमोरेबल के रोभियोको एकदमै मेमोरेबल एउटा भन्छ है, जस्तै हाम्रो नेपालमा अर्थक्वेक गयो नि त. I think it was 2015 April, हैन. 15. So back then I was actually I was on a business trip to San Francisco, हैन. अनि म बिहान जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ नेपालमा अर्थक्वेक गयो रे भनेर फेसबुकमा यता सेयर गरेको. नेपालमा त अर्थक्वेक त गइरहन्छ, खासै ठुलो कुरो लागेन नि त. So when I landed in SF after, I don't know, 14 hours or something, यसो टिभीमा हेर्छु त, it was all over the news, हैन. त्यहाँबाट I literally started checking, हैन, सुत्नै सकेन, हैन. And so एक हप्तापछि म फर्केर आएँ. यहाँ पनि there was a lot of obviously all of us contributed in, you know, like collecting money through Red Cross and यताउता. So मैले अनि रोभियो भने कि हैन, directly मैले CEO लाई भने, हैन, this natural disaster happened in my country. What can we do as a company भने, हैन. अनि CEO ले के भन्यो भने, ल ठीक छ, हैन, we totally understand, हैन. What तिमी एउटा प्रोग्राम बनाऊ, हैन, एउटा वर्क ग्रुप बनाऊ, एउटा प्रोग्राम बनाऊ. So what can be done from our side, हैन, we can do that भन्यो. अनि गरेपछि अनि हाम्रो एउटा गेम थियो Angry Birds Friends भन्ने. Angry Birds Friends को चाहिँ तिम्रो weekly tournament हुन्थ्यो कि, weekly tournament. So it's it changed every week, हैन. So हामीले हाम्रो यो वर्क ग्रुपले चाहिँ के भन्दा यो गेममा गरे भने चाहिँ, हैन, so still had, I don't know, 2 million people playing every week or something. It's a lot of audience. यो गेममा बनायो भने चाहिँ यसको यो स्ट्रक्चर अलरेडी छ, हामीले यसलाई चाहिँ एउटा हेल्प नेपाल टुर्नामेन्ट भनेर गऱ्यो भने चाहिँ सो इट विल बी इजी। नत्र अरू गेममा बनायो भने इट निड्स अ लट अफ डेभलपमेन्ट रिसोर्सेस होइन, यसको टेम्प्लेट चाहिँ अलरेडी छ, वी क्यान मेक देयर भने त्यहाँबाट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ सो द डेभलपमेन्ट टिम स्टार्टेड वर्किङ अन इट होइन। बट देन सम हाउ वी ओके, किनभने हामीले अनि रोभियोले के भन्यो भने चाहिँ सो इफ यु क्यान फाइन्ड लाइक अ डोनेसन सort of mechanism, so Rovio will be supporting it with 100,000 euros भने कि राइट। अनि त्यहाँबाट ठिक छ, तर चाहिँ हामीलाई चाहिँ सो द ओन्ली थिङ इज वी हेभ टु वर्क विथ द रजिस्टर्ड अर्गनाइजेसन, इन्टरनेसनल अर्गनाइजेसन, किन जो पायो त्यही च्यारिटीलाई दियो भने चाहिँ अब अलिक मिल्दैन होइन। भने चाहिँ हामीले फिनिस रेड क्रससँग कुरा गर्दाखेरि बिकज इट वाज अ ग्लोबल थिङ, सो दे इन्ट्रोड्युस अस टु इन्टरनेसनल रेड क्रस कि स्विजरल्यान्डमा राइट। त्यहाँबाट आई वाज डिरेक्टली डिलिङ विथ देम होइन, इभन लाइक द प्रोमो भिडियो हेल्प नेपाल टुर्नामेन्ट डोनेसनको लागि भनेर। सो आई वर्क विथ एप्पल एन्ड गुगल होइन, उनीहरूले त्यो टुर्नामेन्टले फिचर पनि गर्यो, वी ह्याड अ डोनेसन्स कमिङ इन होइन। सो लिटरली इन 3 weeks सबै के त्यो इनिसिएसनदेखि लिएर एक्जिक्युसन होइन सबै 3 हप्तामा भयो कि। अनि इन्टरनेसनल रेड क्रस वाज सो इम्प्रेस द्याट उनीहरूलाई यस्तो डिजिटल एक्टिभेसन गर्नको लागि उनीहरूलाई 6 महिनाभन्दा कम हुँदैन कि उनीहरूको, त्यति नै बढी हुन्छ कि। बट वी म्यानेज टु डु इन 3 weeks, अफकोर्स a lot of goodwill for Red Cross as well.
Of course.
And I think at the end we collected about altogether, I don't know, 120 or 130,000 euros. That went to a Finnish Red Cross to Nepal Red Cross. So that was to me like, let's say, you know, the jewel of my experience in Rovio, which, you know, like, हुन्छ नि अब हाम्रो देशमा त्यस्तो हुँदा पनि होइन। So and it's not only about collecting money or sharing that donation होइन, but it's all about like creating an awareness. A lot of children play our games होइन, they're creating an awareness that यस्तो हुन्छ होइन। अहिले पनि कति भइरहेछ होइन, त्यो अर्थक्वेक अस्ति मोरक्कोमा भयो होइन, अनि कति फ्लडिङ भइरहेछ होइन। सो इट्स अबाउट क्रिएटिङ एन अवेरनेस द्याट स्पेसली चिल्ड्रेनहरूको लागि चाहिँ वी एउटा अवेरनेसको कुरा हो। अनि धेरै मान्छेहरूलाई नभएको, जस्तै फिनल्यान्ड नभएको देश, नेचुरल क्लामिटी धेरै हुँदैन त्यही त। सो पिपल सफर अ लट, दे लुज देयर लाइफ्स एन्ड वेल्थ एन्ड एभ्रिथिङ राइट। It's also creating awareness of this natural calamities.
I think that, I mean, it's really good to hear of companies like those really stepping up, and they're stepping up and then really helping. For example, of course, at the end of the day, it also depends on what kind of project it is and who is initiating it, and kind of like timeline dekhi liera aba execution time frame kati cha. Of course, everything matters, but you know, coming up with almost 100K, 120K is a big amount. Right? I think that must be something that you are very proud of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's go back to the
and then yeah, exactly. And this was going back to you know, your own career, moving forward after Rovio. How, of course, you've been working there for about 10 years there, no?
Yeah, almost 10 years. Yeah.
What was the decision for you to kind of like move into the new career path?
Sure.
Was there any kind of like a few things that kind of like made you okay? I would say Barana, time to leave Rovio, or was there any kind of like a moment for you, and then, you know, going into Huawei, and then after that again, you know, coming back to gaming industry? How did that transition became for you?
So म चाहिँ धेरै प्लेटफर्महरूसँग काम गर्थेँ कि, जस्तै एप्पल गुगलहरूसँग. So I always wanted to sort of let's say experience working on the platform side. Okay? Kinomane when you're one developer, you're only working with one content. Okay? Haina? But if you're on the platform side, you get to work with different content providers. Haina? Sano developer देखि लिएर ठुलो developer सबैसँग कुरा काम गर्न मिल्छ नि त हैन. So I wanted to experience that journey के कसरी प्लेटफर्ममा बसेर कसरी गर्दा. And being perfectly honest, like Apple, I went through like 7 or 8 interviews at Apple. Okay? And at the end, I didn't get the job. I never applied at Google, but Apple, I really wanted to experience, because Apple was a very unique company. You know, I had worked with them, very unique company, very specific, a lot of focus into quality and customers. Okay, so I really wanted to experience working at Apple. Okay, and I almost got it, but I didn't at the end. Anyway, so then. Let's say that I was reached out by Huawei, and they wanted to build their own sort of the app store, right? अनि त्यसपछि उनीहरूले they were looking for a place to they were building sort of a global team in London, and then they said, would you like to join? And I looked around, and I've obviously worked in Rovio for such a long time, and I wanted to be in the platform business, and especially Huawei was interesting because they were building from scratch, right? So I thought maybe it would be interesting to be a part of that growth, and from the very beginning. त्यो भएर I joined Huawei late 2020, okay, and then I moved to UK.
That was COVID time, and
that was COVID time. Yeah. That was COVID time, and I have my siblings in the UK. I thought, okay, it'd be nice to actually leave some time, with my siblings around. गएर पछि, so I didn't take a place of my own, so I stayed with my sister. She was happy to have me. But then it was lockdown, right? यहाँको फिनल्यान्डमा भन्दा पनि बढी लकडाउन के, घरबाट त बाहिरै निस्कन नपाउने कि हैन. So in my 1 year, almost 1.5 years, 1 year, 4 months of time in Huawei, I literally been to the office once. Yeah. So literally, like the whole time I was basically locked up. Yeah, the UK was very strict during the COVID time.
And then you decided to then move to to Sansoft. How did the opportunity come about there for you?
Yeah, so I was in Huawei 1 year, 4 months, so Huawei is obviously there's a big ambition to grow the app store business, but obviously there's a lot of geopolitical issues. Absolutely. Huawei, and then the US. So it was a lot of complexity with the company, and also I think it was a lot of complexity in terms of when an organization going through a rough times, within the organization there's also a lot of complexities, right? And so I thought maybe it was not the right place for me, and also I really wanted to come back to Finland. Yeah, I tried in the UK. I mean, I loved being there, but probably not the COVID experience. But I really wanted to come back to Finland, and let's say that my ex-colleague from Rovio had joined Sansoft, and I had actually had a meeting with Sansoft because they were pitching their games to Huawei. So what they were trying to build from scratch it's a big company. The group level is about 10,000 people, but they were building a gaming company. Like literally, when I joined, I think we were about 20 people. So it was starting from scratch, and I think that the excitement of wanting to learn of a completely different geo, like an Arabic country, Middle East. I don't know so much about it, especially in the gaming context, and also the fact that they were starting from scratch, that really attracted me. I know, because they had a very high ambition level. So again, it would be a similar path as Rovio, so starting from scratch and then hopefully to build something big in the future. I think that was the key of joining Sansoft.
On the Sansoft, like, what does it actually do? Like, I mean, and how long it has been in the business? And I think we've now been almost over a year there.
Sure. Yeah.
Over a year. I think we've seen now a lot of changes and a lot of kind of like overall the scene of the gaming industry, especially in the MENA region, for example. And just go like how vast or how big it is at the moment, and what is the direction that it is going towards.
Sure. So Saudi Arabia as a country is investing a lot into gaming and entertainment, right? So far, I think they've invested $40 billion in buying companies or buying a stake in the companies, right? So they bought Scopely, they have shares in Activision Blizzard, EA, Netmarble, Nintendo. So they've been spending. They have a vision. They call it Saudi 2030 vision, which means they want to diversify dependency from oil and gas to other industries, right? The oil is going to run out, and so they're investing a lot into, and they're investing in different industries. Tourism is one, But gaming and entertainment is a huge one, and sports as well. Like you've seen now, Saudi Pro League attracting a lot of players. There's a Formula One, and quite recently I heard that they're going to be organizing big cricket tournament as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're investing a lot into sports, into gaming, into entertainment, into tourism, so that the money they have right now, so they can divest it into different industries, build that industry. So they have been investing, but we are a private company. So it's a 10,000 people company on a group level, 16 different verticals, 16 different industries. But one of the family member, a young guy who is 30 years old, our managing director, he's a gamer, right? And he organized one of the biggest PUBG esports tournament in 2019 in Saudi. It was one of the biggest prize money, and it was very successful. And he initiated the gaming. He wanted to start a gaming company. The country was investing into gaming. So that's how it started in 2019. But really, like let's say that they were exploring in the beginning, but really our operations, let's put it that way, started just in the last year or two.
And of course, you're traveling quite many different places, quite many different cities, and go to different conferences and stuff. When you are pitching, or when they see a Riyadh-based publishing company or gaming company, how because of course in other countries, in European states and other countries, of course the gaming industry has been there for so long. How difficult it is sometimes to pitch, investors pitch garदाखेरि अथवा startups pitch garदाखेरि, how difficult it is to get their affirmation, okay, let's go forward with the deal. How difficult it is to pitch, or how easy it is to pitch? Deal how does it go overall?
So एउटा राम्रो अथवा नराम्रो पछि चाहिँ जस्तै साउदीले त्यति गेमिङमा त्यति इन्भेस्ट गरेपछि everybody thinks that everyone in Saudi has money, right? So everybody is attracted. There's just open ears all around, right? So हामीलाई पनि त्यही भन्नुहुन्छ, but we are a private company. We are investing diligently, right? And so we look at the performance of the companies, how they've done so far with their games, or how they're building the organization, the core team. What is their experience? Are they, because gaming is big, but it's at the same time it's very competitive. I know in the App Store, Google Play, there's probably 1,000 games coming out every day, right? So it's a very, very competitive industry, and a lot of the gaming from console, I know, console is coming to mobile as well, right? So there's a lot of competition, right? So we need to be really diligent in terms of what kind of games are now working in the market, I know, and what is the capability of the team, and yeah, so we need to look at from different perspective. So we ourselves, we are investing into building our own teams, I know. Saudi Mara, Barcelona, we're building our own teams, but that takes a while, right? So you need to hire enough people. They start working on the game. That takes maybe another 2 years. By the time the game is out, we're talking about 2, 3, 4 years, right?
Yeah.
But as a short-term growth vector, so what we're looking at is there's a lot of the companies who actually during the COVID time, because the gaming, especially mobile gaming, was going really high. So a lot of the companies got a lot of VC funding, right? So 2 million, 5 million, they got a lot of VC funding. So they comfortably worked on a game idea, they changed it, and then, so after 2, 3 years now, they have worked on a game, maybe it's complete or about to be completed. तर चाहिँ making a game is just half a part, not even half, like a quarter of a part. The really publishing, pushing it in the market, pushing it, marketing, that's a bigger headache. You need resources, you need funding, you need to spend a lot of money in marketing, but also the know-how, how to do it, how to navigate to this competitive market. अनि त्यस्तो चाहिँ अहिले गाह्रो भइरहेको छ, because they're not finding equal amount of funding that they have they've gotten when they were starting the company, right? So now we are coming in, and then we are evaluating the games, and then thinking, okay, we can help you out to publish these games globally.
And also going back, gaming ko baare mein when during your time at Rovio, I'm sure that there were so many different games that were made during that 10 years of time. कुनै पनि गेम तपाईले किल गर्दाखेरि how does it feel, how the team feels, how do you usually pass that information after 2 years of hard work, and all of a sudden you have to kill the game?
Sure.
How does the process go, and then how do you get up from that?
Yeah, so even before Angry Birds, right, Rovio made 52 games, right? So like nobody knows about that, right? So and then after one game is successful, it's very hard to replicate that success, right? Your benchmark is really high, right? तर चाहिँ गेमिङ भनेको कस्तो छ भने it's still hard to predict, which game will be successful, right? And if you look at Supercell, I mean, Supercell probably launches, I don't know, 20-25 games, they kill them, you know. So it's, of course, in the beginning, it's again, like a very creative people who are actually designing the game. For them, it's their baby, right? But then I think it develops in the mindset, in the culture of the company. How do we marry like the creativity with the, with the business, right? So the business has to make sense. Once that's sort of understood within the company that we need to work, and they're giving ample resources, they're giving ample time, they test in the market. If it works out, that has the potential to be $1 billion business. Then your reward is huge, right? I mean, something you created became $1 billion business. But at the same time, 99% of the case, you can succeed. So they need to be sort of, they need to be killed, right? And I mean, they get to work in other projects. Like, so if one game is, let's say, killed, then they can work on others. Yeah. So there's that motivation, right? But it's creating that culture and understanding about, we need to be able to create that kind of game that will be able to market in the market, and people will, millions will people play, right? Yeah. Testo concept, testo mindset, the company will build up, it's not a problem. I think everybody understands this is how it works.
Great. I mean, of course, like we have like such, over decades of kind of like experience in the gaming industry. When you look at your own skill set, of course, your own education back home, back in Nepal, and also, the courses and the universities that you have done in Finland and also in the States. What do you think are the skill sets that are needed? Whoever wants to go and join a gaming company or gaming industry, what kind of skill set do you think, and what kind of options people would have, as a kind of like a role job ko lagi? What kind of like a skill set would they need?
So, Finland, I think we are sort of in the epicenter of gaming, right? Especially when it comes to mobile gaming, right? So this is the best place to enter gaming industry. होइन जस्तै नेपालमा जाउँ भने गाह्रो हुन्छ, इभन इन्डियामा पनि ओके इट्स ग्रोइङ अप, बट स्टिल फिनल्यान्ड भनेको इट्स द एपिसेन्टर, राइट? आई मिन लाइक द लाइक्स अफ Supercell and Rovio and many other companies, right? So there is various fields that you can, so if you are like if you're a developer, if you're a computer engineer, you can get into developing the game. If you are a designer mindset, if you are an artist, so you can study different fields, but you need to have, I mean, these are development fields, right? Obviously, you need to get accustomed to the new tools that's out there. You need to obviously play the games. You need to see what's out there, how they are doing it. Maybe try to get some internship if you're in a certain field, होइन? त्यसरी जान सकिन्छ, होइन? सो अनि अर्को चाहिँ स्पेसल्ली गेमिङमा चाहिँ अर्को एकदमै ठुलो skill set अहिले in a high demand is like I mean, and not just in gaming, right? तिम्रो data and engineering, data engineering or data analyst, होइन? त्यसमा तिम्रो अलि if you're really brilliant with numbers, if you're really into maths, I think that's a field that you can really like capitalize on. And त्यसमा पनि huge demands, होइन? Other than that, like you can get into marketing. I know marketing starts from digital marketing. I know Facebook campaigns, Google campaigns. But then digital marketing in gaming is far ahead than any other industry. But once you get into the early phase, if you're really interested, if you get some skill set, develop some skill set, try and apply for like internships, a gaming company, otherwise similar. And that's your sort of, like I said, एउटा त्यो स्टेजमा फर्स्ट स्टेजमा पुगेर तिमीले एक्सपिरियन्स गेन गर्यो भने then the whole world is your stage after that.
I think in many of the gaming companies or like in many of the bigger corporates and stuff, Finland, of course, your summer training, it provides such an opportunity, so much opportunity for people to just get your foot on that door.
Absolutely.
And I think many of the people that I think in your network, in my network, and including myself, we've done certain traineeship in some company, in some organization, and that's how you go forward. So तपाईँले भने जस्तो एउटा खुड्किला चाहिँ एउटा चाहिँ चाहिँदो रहेछ क्या होइन and I think and also when you're on a training period you want to learn more, you have like so many kind of enthusiasm छँदैछ आफ्नो साइडमा and at the same time proactiveness आफ्नै ठाउँमा छ and you want to make something out of that training, whether it's 3 months, whether 6 months traineeship period ma. So there's a lot of motivation in there, and I think that's good in Finland when there is summer training like when people start look like companies start looking for them. There are a lot of motivated people, a lot of motivated students that want to be part of that process. But yeah, I think working life is something that that definitely is not easy in Finland to get the right job, but I think through internship there's so much possibility.
त्यही त सुरुमा त्यही त अब सुरुमा खुड्किला चढ्न चाहिँ अलिकति गाह्रै हुन्छ किनभने तिम्रो वर्क एक्सपिरियन्स छैन भने नि काम पाउन गाह्रो हुन्छ नि त हैन त्यही भएर चाहिँ बट यु लाइक आई सेड यु हैव टु बी पर्सिस्टेन्ट आँखा यताउता हेर्ने हैन अरूलाई सोध्ने अथवा करियर वेबसाइटहरू जाने डिफ्रेन्ट कम्पनीजको करियर वेबसाइटहरू जाने किन वी टेन टु गिभ अप क्वाइट इजिली कि होइन खै मेरो अब मैले पाउँदैन मेरो एक्सपिरियन्स नै छैन भने त्यही विचारले बस्यो भने चाहिँ कहिले पनि पाउँदैन तर पनि होइन म गर्न सक्छु होइन भनेर अलिकति रिसर्च गर्ने यताउता गरेर तिमीलाई त्यो एउटा सिभी होइन 100 ठाउँमा पठाउनलाई तिम्रो 1 घन्टा जाला होइन सो 1 घन्टा यु डोन्ट निड टु पे फर इट एउटा शनिबार काम नभएको बेलामा 1 घन्टामा सिभी पठाइदिउ न एउटाबाट आयो भने त पुगिहाल्यो नि सो यु हेभ टु बी पर्सिस्टेन्ट हैन
Exactly. I think the persistence आफ्नै ठाउँमा छ, proactiveness आफ्नै ठाउँमा छ. अनि one thing what I was also thinking was in terms of importance of the networking part. अब हुन्छ नि this is something I think a lot of like many of us might not be interested too much event ma jane networking गर्ने because that is so much important, right? So important, especially Finland ma त when officially the people are saying like 70-80% jobs are hidden jobs. You go, you find the right person, you connect with the right person, and that's how you get the job. And त्यसको लागि चाहिँ it's so important in Finland, especially going out to different events, whether you just networking, just language event ma होस् कि just some tech events, and there's so many free events going around, especially in Helsinki area. You go on those student events, go on those kind of events, and you get to network, you get to meet new people, and I feel that that's how you pitch in. And one thing what I've also realized is networking ma चाहिँ different eventहरुमा जाँदाखेरि volunteer गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ that is one way of gathering as many connections as possible. So I definitely recommend it. तपाईको हिसाबमा चाहिँ of course you've been like in the working life for so long. How much networking has played a role in taking your career forward?
Oh, absolutely crucial. Right? I mean, especially like gaming is still let's say it's a closed industry. Right? So त्यसै भएर हाम्रो गेमिङमा धेरै कन्फरेन्सहरू हुन्छ just to meet each other, just to get update. So it's not always competitive, right? So it's also about collaborative, right? You're going through the same pain points, and how do you solve these pain points together? Just the GDPR issue to you, Amber Gaming, man. There's a lot of issues. So a lot of the Finnish gaming companies, they got together and they had this they tackled it together. How do you solve the GDPR through games, right? So there's a lot of the things, and of course also the fact that you're moving around the companies quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're friends with everybody. I know. Sometimes you're in one company, you might be working in another company. I mean, it could be another country, but it's really important. And at the end of the day, also, a lot of my work is doing partnerships, right? And
relationship building on that.
Exactly. In doing to do a very mutually beneficial partnership is a relationship building, is trust building, right? अब अहिले मैले तिमीसँग पार्टनरशिप गरे मलाई मात्र फाइदा हुने हिसाबले गरे भने त हैन okay, I might gain once, but you're going to have quite a bad reputation later on, right? तर हाम्रो अब रिलेशनशिप राम्रो छ, that can snowball into other relationships, right? So networking is really, really important. That's where I mean recruiting perspective, partnership perspective, just having seen in the events, and I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely. Really.
So भन्न खोजेको तिमीले करियर अगाडि तिमीले यो जुन नेटवर्किङको एउटा स्किल सेट, इट्स अबाउट स्किल सेट एज वेल राइट, त्यो स्किल सेट त्यो बनायो भने चाहिँ सो वेन यु गो इन्टु यर करियर देन द्याट बिकम्स इभन मोर रेलेभेन्ट एन्ड इम्पोर्टेन्ट के होइन, मान्छेसँग बोल्नलाई नलजाउने होइन, एन्ड यु क्यान बी इन मेनी टाइम्स यु क्यान बी इन रियली डिफिकल्ट सिचुएसन्स होइन, बट यु निड टु बी एबल टु अब्जर्भ द्याट। कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ राम्रो सिचुएसनमा सबैसँग सेलिब्रेटरीमा नि कसरी बिहेभ गर्ने होइन, त्यो कुराहरू चाहिँ एकदमै एकदमै इम्पोर्टेन्ट हुन्छ कि।
एब्सोल्युटली दाइ। अब टक लट अबाउट होइन तपाईँको करियरको बारेमा धेरै कुरा भयो। अल्सो वान ब्रिङ अप one area that we have been doing for the last few years, Momo House, about Momo House. I would love to know more that how did the idea came up, and then how, like, how overall, how did the idea came up, and then how kind of what are your plans, future plans with that one?
सो मोमो हाउस त फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्ट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामी 3जना साथीहरू मिलेर गरौँ त भन्ने हुन्छ नि त, कुरै कुरामा एउटा इभिनिङमा होइन, सो गरौँ त भनेर एउटा प्लान भयो होइन, सो वी वेन्ट फर इट होइन, सो द्याट टट अस अ लट अफ थिङ्स होइन, सो एउटा कुरा चाहिँ कसरी लोन लिने, सो आई मिन एन्ड अल्सो फर न्यू अन्टरप्रेन्योर्स देयर इज अ लट अफ हेल्प इन फिनल्यान्ड है, जस्तै तिम्रो फिनभेराले 85% अफ द लोन चाहिँ ग्यारेन्टी गरिदिन्छ। अफकोर्स यु निड टु write a good business plan, you need to make sure that you can succeed in this market, you can get a lot of help right, so loan money फिनभेरा जस्तोले गरिदिन्छ तिम्रो। अनि जस्तै अन्टरप्रेन्योर्सहरूलाई जस्तै स्टार्टतिर आयो भने चाहिँ जस्तै सर्टेन अमाउन्ट अफ मनी चाहिँ, किनभने सुरुमा अन्टरप्रेन्योरहरूलाई त आफूलाई पैसा दिने स्यालेरी हुँदैन, त्यस्तोको लागि हेल्प गर्नको लागि चाहिँ आई थिङ्क एभ्री मन्थ 500 to 700 चाहिँ यु क्यान अप्लाई फर इट, द्याट्स अलमोस्ट लाइक फ्री मनी कि होइन, सो दिस लट अफ हेल्प। अनि अर्को बिजनेस फिनल्यान्डले चाहिँ दे विल हेल्प यु टु रेजिस्टर द कम्पनी होइन, किन हामीलाई धेरै च्यालेन्ज भनेको हाम्रो लागि ल्याङ्ग्वेज हो, यहाँको प्रोसिडियरहरू हो होइन, ब्युरोक्रेसीहरू हो, त्यसको कुराको लागि बिजनेस फिनल्यान्डसँग अपोइन्टमेन्ट लिएर गयो भने दे क्यान हेल्प यु आउट होइन। सो वी वेन्ट थ्रु द्याट प्रोसेस, वी स्टार्टेड अ कम्पनी, एन्ड विथ एनी बिजनेसेस समटाइम्स इट वर्क्स आउट, समटाइम्स इट डजन्ट राइट। अनि त्यसपछि हाम्रो फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्ट चाहिँ जस इट्स स्टिल कन्टिन्युइङ विच इज ग्रेट राइट, तर वी काइन्ड अफ वी पुल्ड आउट अफ द्याट प्रोजेक्ट एन्ड then we got together with 9 other people right, and so what instigated us is that like हामीले त्यो फुटबलको कुरा भने फुटबल टुर्नामेन्ट हामी 0 बजेटमा 400-500 जनालाई इन्भल्भ गरेर फुटबल गर्छ, कन्सर्ट गर्छ। इफ यु लुक एट इट आई थिङ्क वी लुकिङ एट मेबी 10 to 20,000 बजेट राइट, हामीले 0 बजेटमा गर्छ कि होइन, वी एबल टु like cater, collecting, organizing this football tournament, and it's always successful right। हामीले 0 बजेटमा गर्न सक्छ भने त आई थिङ्क वी क्यान डु समथिङ बिजनेस सेन्समा पनि होइन भनेर त्यो आइडियाले चाहिँ वी गट टुगेदर 9 फ्रेन्ड्स एन्ड वी स्टार्टेड मोमो हाउस कालियो, एन्ड इट्स आई थिङ्क सेकेन्ड इयर रनिङ, इट्स अ profitable business. Of course there's challenges, especially after COVID, there's a lot of challenges, especially in the food and restaurant industry, but at the same time we've been building the brand, Momo House brand, so we've been in the music festival, Flow Festival twice होइन, so in Sideways Festival once, we used to actually पहिला चाहिँ हामी आफैले काम गर्थ्यौँ होइन, but now we are able to employ people, so it's self-sustaining right, and it's a profitable business. So त्यो गर्दा गर्दै अब त्यो यस्तो हो कि फेरि टिमवर्क भनेको इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ कि होइन, सो इफ यु लाइक आई ट्राइड इन द किचन, इट डजन्ट वर्क फर मी राइट होइन, तर वी हेभ भेरी ट्यालेन्टेड पिपल हु क्यान वर्क इन द किचन होइन, सो यु निड टु फाइन्ड द राइट सोर्ट अफ दि टिम, एन्ड मार्केटिङ गर्ने हाम्रो केटाहरू होइन, क्रिएटिभ्स गर्ने राम्रो छ होइन, सो वेन एभ्रिथिङ कम्स टुगेदर होइन, एन्ड यु हेभ लाइक वान भिजन to take it forward, I think it works out.
The distribution of the resources in the right places, that,
right,
I think that matters a lot. A bit more about, again, over branding ko barema jadakeri हैन, plus at the same time a bit more about company register गर्ने ko kurama, how difficult was the process for you there? Of course, like there's business and Finvera or staff and everything, but how challenging was for you guys to find those kind of information, and what was the timeline? Kati 2-3 mahina lagyo, how was the time period to have the initial idea, then go through those process and having a place, physical place to start selling the food?
फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्ट जस्तै 4-5 महिना लाग्यो होला होइन, किनभने फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्टमा चाहिँ हामीले वी ह्याड टु अप्लाई फर इन्भेस्टमेन्ट लोन होइन, त्यसको लागि बकाइदा बिजनेस प्लान लेखेर प्रेजेन्ट गरेर बोथ फिनभेरालाई पनि ब्याङ्कलाई पनि दिनु पऱ्यो होइन, सो द्याट टुक अनि उनीहरूको पनि आफ्नै प्रोसेस हुन्छ यो चुज गर्ने होइन, So I think, and then of course we built the place as well, होइन त्यो गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अलिकति टाइम लाग्यो. सेकेन्ड चाहिँ we already had like so we didn't have to raise, होइन हामीले 8 जनाले अब ऊ चिपिन गरेर खोलेको, होइन त्यही भएर there was not investment needed. So to register, and still it's in 2 languages, Finnish र Swedish मा छ, just to get that registration going. अनि थोरै खास गाह्रो कुरा चाहिँ छैन कि, होइन तर त्यो गर्नलाई पनि. So we had to get help from, I think this time it was Business Finland, ESPO को एकजनाले हामीलाई हेल्प गर्यो, होइन. But it's not a long process. It's just, you know, just putting the right things and the documents and stuff. It's fairly easy. And again, like the help is there. Business Finland को help is there. It's really easy process. So it's not difficult at all. हामीलाई चाहिँ अलिकति ल्याङ्ग्वेज ब्यारियर भएर चाहिँ अलिकति गाह्रो भयो.
And for you, of course, you have your own career going on, and you have, you know, Mama House, and of course, FC Gaunle when they so. How difficult it is to manage for you? How kind of like, you know, how busy are you like on a regular basis when you are trying to manage quite many different things?
Of course, तिम्रो अब मैले भने नि तिम्रो भर्खर हामीले ममा हाउस कालले सुरु गर्दाखेरि एभ्रीबडी ह्याड टु चिप इन के, होइन. जस्तै एक दिनमा एकजनाले ह्यान्डल गर्नुपर्ने, त्यस्तो गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अफकोर्स यु ह्याड टु कट डाउन अन यर विकेन्ड प्लान्स, होइन, अथवा अरू त्यतिखेर चाहिँ सुरुमा चाहिँ अलिकति टाइम वाइज चाहिँ अलिकति गाह्रो हुन्थ्यो, होइन. सो वन्स द बिजनेस स्टार्टेड रनिङ एन्ड इट्स बिन रन बाई भेरी क्यापेबल ह्यान्ड्स, होइन. अनि त्यसैले अहिले चाहिँ त्यस्तो गाह्रो छैन. अभियसली टाइम म्यानेजमेन्ट भनेको यस्तो के हुँदो रहेछ भने, you look at like you know, people who runs company of 50,000 people, 60,000 of people, right, and they do charity work or they do all sorts of things, right. It's the time भने कस्तो हुन्छ, you can stretch as much as you can के, होइन. हामी चाहिँ अब कोही चाहिँ एउटा मात्रै जब छ, म त एकदम बिजी छु, मैले त के गर्ने टाइमै छैन भने पनि फेरि तिमीले टाइम कहिले पनि पुग्दैन कि. So it's all about time management. How do you manage the time, होइन. Of course when you have like हामी फुटबल टुर्नामेन्ट्सहरू हुँदाखेरि अफकोर्स देयर इज लट अफ प्र्याक्टिकल थिङ्स टु सोर्ट आउट. त्यतिखेर अलिकति टाइम जान्छ, ओभर टाइम गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ, अथवा विकेन्डमा अथवा इभिनिङ्सतिर, होइन. तर it's not manage, I mean it's totally manageable. Okay, just have to prioritize things. Of course आफ्नो मेन काम त जबलाई त प्रायोरिटाइज त गर्नु पर्यो, होइन. So other than that, I think it's all about managing time properly, managing your schedule properly. So I think it's totally manageable.
Great to hear that. And जाँदै like what kind of like advice or suggestions do you have for anyone who is trying to build up their career, overall career, gaming industry ma matra haina ki overall career ma chahi, if they want to do something and at the same time if they want to pursue entrepreneurial journey, what kind of advice do you have for them?
So I've been quite repetitive on this, right. I think persistence is the key, right. आफूले के गर्न खोजिरहेछ, if you want trying to get a job, you need to try and try, right. And also if you want to be an entrepreneur, like I said, there's a lot of help in Finland, you know. नेपालमा भए पो तिम्रो हैन कति लाख कति करोड चाहिन्छ भने you don't need that. You just need basically your vision, what you want to do. You need to obviously look at the market, do some market research, हैन. के तिम्रो प्रडक्ट अथवा तिमीले जुन सर्भिस ल्याउन लाग्छ त्यसले त्यो निस त्यो सक्सेस हुन सक्छ, त्यो त अलिकति होमवर्क त गर्नु पर्यो. अरूले बनाइसकेको बिजनेसमा फेरि जान सक्सेस नहोला, त्यो चाहिँ आफ्नो यु निड टु डु द्याट होमवर्क, राइट. तर चाहिँ यु निड टु बी पर्सिस्टेन्स. देयर इज लट अफ हेल्प, होइन. अनि स्पेसली अब यङ भाइ बहिनीहरू जो भर्खर पढिरहेछ, होइन, अनि त्यसपछि जो ग्रेजुएट हुन लाग्छ. सो यु निड टु हेभ ओपन आइज, होइन. देयर इज लट अफ materials available. Maybe if you want to focus beyond your own studies, if you want to focus on a certain skill set, भने नि जस्तै यो डेटा साइन्सको कुरा छ, होइन, अथवा सर्टेन डिजिटल मार्केटिङको कुराहरू छ, इभन लाइक डेभलपर बन्नको लागि कम्प्युटर इन्जिनियरिङको कुराहरू छ. यु निड टु डु अ लिटल बिट एक्स्ट्रा एफोर्ट के, जस्ट टु गेट द्याट स्किल सेट, होइन. अनि त्यहाँबाट यु जस्ट निड टु बी पर्सिस्टेन्ट एन्ड ट्राई बिकज ट्राई गर्नेलाई चाहिँ यु विल सक्सिड वान डे, होइन. अनि त्यही हो entrepreneurshipहरूलाई पनि, होइन. रेस्टुरेन्ट फिल्डमा मात्रै होइन, देयर इज अ लट अफ डिफ्रेन्ट फिल्ड्स एन्ड यु प्रोबब्ली गोना ह्याभ द गेस्ट्स अफ यु नो बिन सक्सेसफुल अन्टरप्रेन्योर्स, नेपाली अन्टरप्रेन्योर्स. अनि मैले अरू देशको साथीहरू पनि देखेको छु कि समहाउ हामी नेपाली चाहिँ एउटा सानो कुरामै आत्मसन्तुष्ट भएर बस्छ कि. हामी चाहिँ अलिकति एक्स्ट्रा स्टेप अगाडि जाम भन्ने त्यस्तो हामीलाई चाहिँ अलिकति हुँदैन रहेछ जस्तो लाग्छ, स्पेसली फिल्ममा कि एउटा सानो एउटा जब पायो भने म यसमा के अरे 1 महिना मेरो महिनाभरि तलब पाउँछ, म यसमै ठिक छु भनेर। सो दे डोन्ट वान्ट अब अरू जस्तै मैले केसहरू त भियतनामिजहरू भनौँ अथवा इभन चाइनिज होइन, अब हाम्रो इन्डियन साथीहरू भनौँ न, सो दे आर मोर एम्बिसियस, दे वान्ट गो इन्टु करियरमा, दे आर भेरी हार्ड, अफकोर्स हार्डवर्क बिना त हुँदैन कि होइन, but you need to, I mean, you need to be ambitious, त्यो अनुसारको तिमीले काम पनि गर्नु पर्यो, त्यो अनुसारको फल पनि आउँछ कि। तर हामी चाहिँ अलिकति सन्तुष्ट जात के नेपालीहरू चाहिँ अलिकति होइन, अब सबैसँग मिल्ने पनि हो हामी, वी रियली गुड एट लाइक यु नो गेटिङ अलङ विथ एभ्री कुनै फिल्ममा काम गर्दा अथवा जहाँ फुटबल खेल्ने जता पनि हामी चाहिँ वी क्यान बी फ्रेन्ड्स विथ एनीबडी होइन, हामीसँग त्यो डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी भन्ने माइन्डसेट नै छैन कि। तर चाहिँ हामी चाहिँ मैले देखेको चाहिँ फिनल्यान्डमा चाहिँ हामी चाहिँ अलिकति एम्बिसियस हुन सकेन, अन्टरप्रेन्योरमा होस् वा अथवा करियर वाइजमा होस्, वी निड टु बी अ लिटल बिट मोर पुसी होइन, वी क्यान डु इट के। हामीसँग त्यस्तै इङ्ग्लिस बोल्न राम्रो आउँछ, सबैलाई पढेको छ होइन, सो आई थिङ्क इट्स जस्ट द्याट यु निड अ लिटल बिट अफ पुश एन्ड अफ कोर्स विथ द पुश यु अल्सो निड टु वर्क हार्ड, राइट?
Absolutely. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your insight, your experiences. I'm sure there's so much to learn for many of us. So thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate it. And yeah, and to everyone watching the show, thank you so much for tuning in. All I can say from my side is stay inspired, keep on grinding, and keep on pushing the boundaries to reach new heights. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you very much, Vikas, for inviting me.
Thank you, Dai.
And congrats and all the best for your new initiative. I think this is really good.
Thank you, Dai. Thank you so much.